understanding fear, understanding that fear is actually a compass. If we can and try to change our relationship to fear and follow it instead of avoid it, I think this is where we start to really live life.
This is By Joyan Season 2. I'm your host, Joyan Chan, and every Wednesday we bring you inspiring stories, powerful message, and fun conversations with me and my special guests and friends, and it's my personal mission to empower you to live and lead a life with joy. This podcast is for you if you're looking for more joy, courage, passion, and purpose in your life. Now let's dive into today's episode and get ready to laugh, learn, and live your life to the fullest. Our guest today is an entrepreneur, creative, and philanthropist. Her personal journey is one of overcoming and recovering from abuse, codependency, addiction, anxiety, health issues, and overall a dangerously low sense of self-worth. Her passion is to create experiences that inspire change, bring people closer together, and help us remember who we truly are. She creates live shows and experiences that dream of a positive future for our world. She had the opportunity to work directly with some of the most impactful people of our time, including Deepak Chopra, Sadhguru, Ricky Martin, Robert De Niro, Akon, Asho, more than a dozen heads of states, royalties, and heads of international organizations. So she's here today to empower you to embrace the path of healing and become the authentic, empowered force that exists within every one of us. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me in welcoming a powerful voice for women's leadership and reinvention, the one and only Natalini Joy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's such a joy to be here, pun intended.
Yeah, it's such a joy to have you here as well, Joy. And so I want to start with your background because it's crazy. When I was doing my research, I was like, wow, is this real? So, is it true that you were once being groomed to run for president of your country?
Yes, my grandmother was a politician. She was very ambitious and very diligent in my upbringing. And her dream was for me to continue her legacy. I was very, very young when she started kind of creating that agenda for my future and sort of preparing me to become a politician. And her dream and her goal was for me to become the first female president of my country. And I really, really took that very seriously. And I embraced that goal. I embraced that dream and that mission. And I drove it pretty far, to be very honest with you, in my journey, until I reached a moment where the opportunity presented itself. And I had this, like in the movies, one of those moments when you've worked your whole life for that moment to happen. And once it's there in front of you, you realize that this is actually not what you want. And yeah, so it's been a pretty interesting experience altogether.
Right. You have to tell me the whole story. So when the moment that you were given the opportunity, like finally, and you realized that this isn't what you want. So in that moment, what did you want for yourself?
I had absolutely no idea, and it's been really one of the most terrifying and bravest realizations I had to take was to accept that this was my grandmother's dream. It was not my dream. It became my dream because in my process of finding myself and uncovering all these layers of conditioning, I understood that this was my way of receiving love from my family, receiving approval, feeling belonging. It was to just do what they expect me to do. When this happened, and someone who's extremely well positioned in the world of politics, in the world of pre-election campaigns internationally and so on, when this person approached me told me that he would like to run my campaign and thinks that I can actually be the first female president of Bulgaria without knowing at all that this is something that I've worked for my whole life. It was one of those very serendipitous moments. And I had that really profound moment of clarity and epiphany. I was terrified because past that point, it was like total emptiness and void, like if I'm not that, then what am I? I have no idea. Like I was so young when this identity was injected in me, and this whole kind of dream and vision and prospect for my life had become the very foundation and the very structure of my existence. And so when that started to fall apart, I experienced sort of death in a way, because I had absolutely no idea who I am past that point.
Right. So during your journey, on your path to becoming the first female president, have you ever wondered if this is really the life you want? Like, have you ever stopped along the way and questioned if this is truly what you want?
No, I have never questioned. I think maybe like there's been moments where I would feel my genuine and authentic sort of creativity kind of come to the surface, and obviously like the joy and the satisfaction of being in being aligned with who you truly are. That would happen like on very rare occasions, and then maybe I would wonder a little bit. But to be honest, like this whole like politics agenda was so cemented in my mind, and it was so like it had become such a safe place for me, because if I do that, then I will be loved, then I will belong, then I am worthy, then I am someone. That was so deeply ingrained in my modus operandi that I couldn't live without it. So questioning it, doubting it, or even considering like taking a different route was completely out of the question for me up until a few years ago.
So in the bio as well, I read it out loud that you were struggling with a dangerously low sense of self-worth, and as you just mentioned it, what was the cause of your low sense of self-worth?
I think the cause of anybody's low sense of self-worth is our upbringing and how we are raised and how we received or not received love from our caregivers, from our parents, from our community, from the people around us. I unfortunately, I mean, look, at this point of my life, I'm very grateful for everything that has happened to me so far. But I grew up in a rather complicated context. I didn't have a father that was present. I didn't have a father that was able to acknowledge me as his daughter, to be there for me, to give me his attention, to give me his love, to give me his approval. And that kind of really damaged my sense of self-worth as a woman, and my sense of self-worth as not only as a woman, as a person. The absence of my father led to other sort of very unfortunate experiences that I had as a child, including sexual abuse at a very early age. So all of these factors sort of contributed to me molding and becoming the person that my grandmother wanted me to be, because she was really there for me and really kind of being the more stable and more how can I say, like engaged parent. And that really hijacked my identity though, because I started becoming someone that I never was. And that also further contributes to a low sense of self-worth, because with time, what happens is that I was afraid really to be who I am, because it didn't feel safe. It didn't feel like I could receive appreciation and love if I'm just me. Like that didn't feel like it's enough. I mean, look, I'm not a therapist. I'm a patient. Like I've been doing a lot of therapy over the last few years, and this is sort of where I am with how I explain and how I understand that lack of self-worth, but for sure, at some point, I realized that this was there. It's operating my life. It's placing me in situations that are not safe. It's making me behave in ways that are not loving towards me. They're not respectful towards me. My sort of the way I was treating myself was not kind or loving in any way. And so I came to the realization that at the root of that is this dangerously low sense of self-worth. And then, I started sort of working on repairing this.
So when you decided to turn down the opportunity of a lifetime, how did your family or your grandmother especially react to your decisions?
Well, my grandmother was not alive at that point, and I think one of the reasons why this whole system started sort of crumbling within me was that I lost my father in my early 30s to cancer, and my grandmother was his mother, so my grandmother on my father's side. And shortly after his passing, she passed away as well. I think those two figures sort of leaving the system and leaving, that realm were two events of very big significance for me and really defined my journey and my ability in a way to start looking for myself because I no longer had that pressure. I no longer had that authority over me, and I could now venture out and start peeking, beyond the curtain of that sort of programming that I had from early childhood.
But did you feel any guilt or fear, perhaps even a lingering fear of disappointing them, even though they are no longer alive?
Yeah, that's a very fair thing. I mean, look, I felt a lot of different things at the same time. It was one of the most confusing and scary times of my life. On one side, I felt perhaps like I wouldn't say I felt guilt. I felt anger. I felt a lot of anger. I felt somehow betrayed by my family because I think like one of the core functions of parents is to help us become who we truly are and help us develop our natural gifts, our natural abilities, discover our real passion, our joy, and so on. I felt like I trusted my grandmother so much, and I completely embraced everything she taught me. And when I started waking up from that, I felt like it was out of integrity. But of course, I completely understand now and completely forgiven, all of this, and I don't have any resentment or any more anger. But I went through that phase of like blame and the feeling of loss and the feeling of grief for having lost such a big portion of my life, chasing something that wasn't truly who I was, putting so much energy because I was like completely obsessed with that goal. I was absolutely like intoxicated with it. I like nothing else existed for me. I needed to get there. And so the amount of energy, the amount of sacrifice, the amount of decisions, every single decision I took up until my early 30s was a function of that goal. When I started waking up from that and sobering up from this, I felt like, oh my God, I lost so much time chasing something that wasn't ever going to make me happy. It wasn't truly what I wanted. And then I felt like, because what happened with my grandmother was that, I grew up in Bulgaria, which was a communist country. And so like when I was 3 years old, the communist regime collapsed. And that's when my grandmother lost her career completely, because the politics changed in the country. And so it felt like she sort of turned me into her project, you know. Now I know and I'm certain that it was done with a lot of love and it was done with a lot of care. And she, according to her, she was doing her best for me. I know, that was her way of showing love, her way of giving me her legacy and so on. But the problem is that on a deeper level, that was actually not of service to me. So I never felt guilt. I felt anger and I felt betrayed and I felt used, even in a way. But I haven't, since the moment I woke up from that and I realized that this was never my dream, I have never looked back.
So once you woke up from that dream, what was the first thing you did for yourself?
Oh, wow. It was such a big journey because that very idea was pretty much the foundation of my entire life. That goal was sort of based on that goal. I built my career. I chose my profession. I chose my jobs. I chose my colleagues, my partners, my, everything. I was so strategic about it because I was so laser focused on it. And when that foundation started to shake, then everything that was built on top of it started to shake. And so the first thing I did, I don't even remember. Like I felt like I was in this state of sort of earthquake, metaphorically, like for a period of time. Because then it was like, okay, but if that's not the goal, then everything becomes pointless. Then I don't need that job, and I don't need those partners, and I don't need this career. And like what I want to do is I want to discover who I am, and I want to know what makes me happy, and I want to create from that place. But I have no idea what this means. I have no idea because it was so early in my upbringing that this was taken over that it never developed. It never really came out. So like a few events sort of happened after that realization. First, shortly after that, I quit my job, which I did for about 10 years. And it was like such an important job for me and such an important project that I was running. And I really loved it. That was, one thing I knew was that, yeah, this job was also serving this goal, but it was also giving me a lot of pleasure and joy. So something in there was also part of who I was. But anyways, I had to quit that job, and then I started looking for myself. I started diving very deep into therapy, into working with psychedelics, into all kinds of different modalities that would help me sort of peel off, all these layers all these protective imaginary layers that I had built around me as a result of my upbringing, and then find what sits underneath all of that and start, nurturing that and discovering it and bringing it out and wanting to serve it really. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, I love that. So what was the turning point in your healing journey? You have tried so many modalities, psychedelics, therapy. What was the turning point for you?
um, the most important thing that I've done was, first of all, like the backbone of my sort of journey of self discovery was talk therapy, and is talk therapy. I meet with my therapist once a week. I've been working with the same therapist for a couple of years now. It's an incremental work. Over time, it really gives back, in a very subtle, in a very incremental way. It's not like you have these major revelations and your life changes overnight, but with time, it really, for me personally, it's been really the backbone of everything I've done. And then apart from on top of this though, like I don't believe that talk therapy alone is enough. I think it's absolutely necessary, but we do need to go, above that sort of baseline. So a major, major turning point for me and something that I'm extremely passionate about was my work with plant medicine and my specifically with the plant of Eboga, which is an African plant originally from Gabon that has been cultivated and grown by the tribe, the Bwiti tribe, Gabonese tribe, for many, many, many years. And I sat with this plant for the first time a year and a half ago, and it completely, completely changed my life. Since then, I'm living a new life. So it's been a major, major turning point for me.
Right. How many years has it been since you walk away from the opportunity?
Um, 3 years.
Only 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. What exactly are you doing now?
Right now, well, as I said, I've been really sort of working very hard on getting to know myself. You know, getting to understand what is that creative force that I carry within me, and what brings me joy, love, and satisfaction in my creative endeavors. I stopped thinking about work as a job and as work. I think of it now more as creativity and being able to create rather than to work, right? It's interesting because the journey of, chasing that dream of becoming a politician. I mean, yes, I was in a way chasing somebody else's dream, but I did it in my own way. And so in that process, I was discovering things that truly make me happy, that I'm genuinely very good at, that, you know, I bring a lot of value to people when I do those things. And so my kind of process was like, okay, so what are these things, and how can I cultivate that and now do the same, but for the purpose of giving value to people, but also, experiencing profound joy from creating. Where I am right now is, I've fully sort of embraced my profound sort of inspiration to bring people together, to create experiences, to create, broadly speaking, events and in-person gatherings, but more now I'm creating it in a more, having connected on a deeper level with my own creativity. Now I'm creating it in a more creative way, so more artistic way, so to speak, more musical experiences, performances, shows, but still very much like building communities, gathering people. Like, for me, something that I absolutely adore is human connection and people in general. I'm a very natural sort of community person. I'm a people's person, and bringing people together in a place where they can experience something deeply for themselves and with each other is something that I genuinely take great pleasure in creating. I am focusing my entire sort of energy and creativity around building experiences of that sort. I'm super fascinated with new technologies that are coming up, very much fascinated with immersive experiences and projection mapping. And there's so much going on in that space right now. And I feel like the potential it carries for really touching people deeply, not only in their minds, but really in their hearts, and engaging all their senses. And then when a narrative is sort of hopeful and beautiful and tells a good story, it has the capacity to really transform people. So I'm very inspired and very much sort of focused right now on creating experiences, engaging, immersive technologies and positive storytelling, so to speak, and seeing what this brings to people.
Right, that's beautiful. That sounds beautiful. Let me know later when we can get more information of the events that you run. Hopefully it's worldwide so that people,
Yeah.
we will have listeners from worldwide. So you speak about, I know your work ultimately is to empower, especially women, to become authentic, express their joy and become the empowered force within themselves. And my question is, yes, you create these immersive experiences, storytelling to hopefully help them, to empower them. But when they get back to their day-to-day life, when they have maybe kids, maybe they are dealing with work issue or even a divorce, what does that look like in our daily life to be empowered and stay empowered?
I think for us women, I feel like we're at a precipice of a major transformation. We carry so much trauma, not only ours, like trauma from that has been passed on from all the women that have come before us in our lineage. And I think we're the first generation to truly, truly contemplate freedom and empowerment. I think we are the generation that will start scratching the surface of that. I don't know if we'll be able to truly go there. We're so deeply traumatized, by having, by everything that we've experienced historically. Don't No need to go into that. We all know what it is. That it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of consistent work for us to be able to step into our power genuinely, right? I personally am like I'm one of the things that I know with certainty today is that I want to dedicate the rest of my life in growing, discovering, and grounding that freedom and that power as a woman that I have, as a natural birthright. I think a lot of us are waking up to that. A lot of us are sort of making it their absolute priority to keep digging and keep releasing, all this conditioning and all this pain that we carry for generations. And I think honestly, it's a matter of choice. It's a choice that we women can make consistently every day, because it's the harder choice. It's the harder path. It's the scarier path. It's definitely the counterintuitive one, because we are creating completely new ways of being for ourselves, and also engaging with the surrounding reality in completely different ways that have not necessarily been experienced before by us or anyone in our families. For me, like, my way of serving that mission and that goal is to completely commit myself to it, to share my journey and what I learn with as many people as I can, reaching as many women as I can. My personal story is around overcoming sexual abuse and overcoming extremely toxic relationships with men in the past. And so for me, I find it very important to bring women together where we can talk about these things and we can inspire each other to make the hard choices. And we don't have to do it alone. We can do it together. So I host circles. I talk to women. I host events around these things. I have a group, a support group that I gather every month, and women join, and we just share and we just talk, and every single one of us shares her experience, what she learned, how she's overcoming the stress, the fear, the codependency, the anxiety, the addiction, whatever it is that we are up against, motherhood. Like, I mean, it's so, like, I'm not saying it's not easy to be a man. I don't know what it's like to be a man. I was born a woman, and but it's very hard to be a woman. We are faced with so many things. So the most important thing that I have discovered so far, and bear in mind, this is a journey for me as well, like, how can I serve to the best of my ability? But so far, what I'm discovering is, like, bringing women together it really makes us unstoppable. We heal together. We heal in community. Us women, we are storytellers naturally. We like to talk. We like to engage. We like to tell. We like to share our stories. We like to be heard. We need to express it. We need to be heard. We need to understand that I'm not the only one that this happened to. It's a shared experience. It's a shared wounding. And sort of like the power we gain from coming together and healing together really makes us unstoppable. So, yeah, I encourage everyone who's contemplating, that journey of empowerment and liberation, really freedom, try to do it in community, because it's really the most healing thing ever.
But I'm sure there are many women out there who are still doing it alone, or they are afraid to step up or show up or even be seen and heard. I'm sure you know many women as well who are still struggling. And the last thing they want is to be seen and heard, because they are struggling with low sense of self worth, right? They're carrying the weight of low self worth and self esteem. So, how would you encourage someone who is maybe still stuck in that, victim mentality or their old identity of maybe they have been abused in the past, toxic relationship like we've been through, and they are afraid to be in community. They're afraid to tell. They're afraid to tell the truth. How would you encourage them? What is their first step?
I think every person has a very unique and very individual journey. I don't think that what happened to me is universal, and the sort of guiding principles that I have worked out for myself maybe don't work for everybody. This is just as a disclaimer because I don't want to, sit and make these like huge statements, knowing that perhaps they're not universal. But something that's really guided me through probably one of the most darkest moments of my life is understanding fear, understanding that fear is actually a compass. If we can and try to change our relationship to fear and follow it instead of avoid it, I think this is where we start to really live life. This is where we start to really discover because you're pushing the boundaries, you're pushing the limits, you're pushing the existing sort of imaginary. Like we also need to understand everything that seems like a structured reality is an illusion. And once you start pushing those lines and pushing those walls, which the lines and the walls are most of the times made of fear, but the fear is an illusion too. And for me personally, understanding that was a major shift in the way I think about my life, the way I think about my journey, the way I experience, the blockages and for me personally, right now, every time I feel afraid of something, and I don't mean like obviously like afraid of heights or like this fear is there to keep us safe. I mean in a more, the more subtle sort of realms, right? But when I'm afraid of speaking up, or when I'm afraid to walk away, or when I'm afraid to say something or do something or act in a certain way, I know that this is exactly where I need to go. And this is exactly what I need to do, because once I push that line, I will find myself on the other side of that. And that for me has been absolute truth and has absolutely worked every single time. So by now, I'm looking for fear. I'm looking to see what scares me. I'm looking to see where I shrink, where I start losing my authenticity. I start losing my voice. I start losing my colors. And so, what is that thing, and why is it there? And this is exactly where I need to go. I was terrified to say no to that opportunity, like absolute terror. This was the end of my life for me. I was terrified to quit my job. After 10 years, I was the CEO of this so reputable nonprofit organization, working at the highest possible level, super, great, terrified, like absolutely paralyzed by the idea of walking away from all these things, terrified to end relationships with toxic men, terrified to be alone, terrified to walk away from all these things. But actually, like picking myself up and walking through that terror, I realized that on the other side of that, there is only joy. Like once you pass through that tunnel of fear, which it feels real, it is scary, it is dark, but you pass through it, and then on the other side of that, you discover yourself, and you start loving yourself. You start connecting with yourself. You start finding who you truly are, because fear constricts us. It keeps us small. It keeps us sort of, boxed up in something that is not the shape of who we truly are. So I don't know. I guess my guiding principle is follow fear, and you'll find freedom. But I know also that for many that would sound ridiculous, because they find themselves in situations that are truly dangerous, that are truly scary. And fear is not just some kind of, like fancy sort of symbolic term or something like that. And so that's why a disclaimer, like it's not a universal truth, but in my case, it's been really my compass.
I really love that. It was so powerful, when you said follow your fear instead of avoiding it. I had to write it down, on a piece of paper. It was so powerful. And it just reminds us that, yeah, fear is just an illusion, and use it as your compass, and you will meet your true self on the opposite side of your fear. So, what other techniques, like you say, facing fear is like the scariest thing ever. So, could you share another thing maybe for us women or men perhaps that you use personally to discover your voice, to discover your true self, your authenticity? Did you have another practice perhaps you can use, or any other question we should ask ourselves?
Sure. I mean, look, another thing that's really worked for me was to take this path in a very intuitive way. The way sort of I kind of interacted with this process was I was asking myself questions. Like at some point, my life had become so unbearable. Even though I had this amazing job and I'm living this amazing life, but on the back end, it had become so unbearable that instead of like, yes, I was suffering a lot, but a curiosity kind of started to emerge because I was like, why am I living this? Like, why is this my movie? Why is this happening to me? Okay, it's bad. Okay, it hurts. Okay, I'm sad. But why? Like, why? Why is this happening to me and not happening to other people? And so another sort of technique that I have developed over time is really to ask myself the right questions in a very intentional and a very kind of even stubborn way. And what happened for me was that at some point, I don't know, like the universe or whatever you want to call that force started giving answers. Like it just started bringing things into my space, into my reality, into my life that would help me find the answers that I was looking for. And these things would come in the shape of people that I meet that carry some kind of information for me, that would recommend some kind of modality or some kind of therapist or some kind of book or whatever it is. It could be in the form of discovering certain practices, certain, tools, techniques. Maybe I'm watching a movie and somebody says something about, I don't know, a certain modality, and intuitively I would get curious about that, and like following that sort of intuition and that curiosity that the things that were entering my space were producing was how I navigated this entire process. Because as I say, like, and I really believe that I don't think there is a universal truth when it comes to healing and discovering yourself. It's a very unique and very personal journey. Everyone, like once a person decides and agrees to walk that path, they will be bombarded with information because there's so much going on out there, and everybody has an advice to give, and everybody has a recommendation to give. And it's great because people want to share because it's worked for them and they want to spread that goodness, so it's amazing. But not everything will work for you, like for example, for me, I had the most transformative experience with the plant of iboga. But iboga is a very intense plant. Like it won't work for everybody. I wouldn't ever start recommending this to everyone because maybe for you it's terrible, for me it's amazing. So following your gut, which is a very kind of, it's a very slippery advice because developing sort of that relationship with your own intuition is a process in itself. But how how can we know if something is right for us is if it sparks curiosity, if you want to know more about it. When you hear about it, you're like, oh, what is that? Tell me more. I want to know. You Google it, you start searching, then it's showing you that this is probably something that will work well for you. I really encourage, and us women, intuition is very natural to us. We are
Yes.
naturally way more connected to our gut feeling, to our sensations, to the subtle realms, of this world. So it's not as hard for us to connect to our feminine power is to follow that intuitive knowing. So yeah, I really encourage anyone who's on that journey to take it with a lot of reverence, to take it with a lot of care, with a lot of respect, because it's such a intricate process. It's so sensitive and so it can go sideways, and to really follow that deep knowing that is within you, that knows where you need to go and knows exactly what you need, and it will take you to all the right places once you attune to it and you start kind of following that. So yeah.
I love that because now we know we have to follow our fear and follow our curiosity and follow our
Yeah.
intuition. So you just have to follow these three things. It will guide you to the right path, I believe. I love it.
Yes, I believe so too. Yeah.
So you change your name from, I don't know how to pronounce it, Talimka to
Yes.
Natalie, your name today. Why did you change your name and what does it mean to you?
For me, like changing my name symbolizes this entire process that I went through. I was named after my grandmother, and the name Talimka is actually quite unique and quite uncommon in Bulgaria, and obviously outside of the country, but within the country as well. And so it was a very, in a way, like characteristic, like a very strong name. It was only her and me with that name in the country. So, everywhere you go, you sort of like become that name because it's so different. In a way, the uniqueness of the name and the fact that I carried her name was also part of me sort of carrying her legacy and continuing her work and becoming basically her, a version of her. And so when I started kind of shaking this off of me, I couldn't carry that name anymore. I didn't want it, because I had so profoundly changed within me. Something had so deeply shifted that it's so strange. I don't know even how to explain it. Like it just I couldn't have that name anymore. It didn't work for me. I couldn't hear it. I didn't recognize myself in it. I didn't want it. Like there was a very strong rejection to it. And at some point it dawned on me that I want to change my name, and I want to choose my name. And for me it was a very symbolic thing because I was going through this process of finding who I truly am, finding what I love, what makes me happy, what are my true colors, giving myself the freedom, to call myself what I want and what resonates with me and what suits me and what I choose for me, became really sort of that, like the ceremony of becoming myself. It was a very, very important moment in my life, and I'm so happy I did it. I changed it legally as well, so it's in all of my legal documentations and everything. And I believe that changing my name also changed my path. I try not to go too much into the kind of abstract things of these things, these sort of experiences, but we can't deny that there is like a certain energy to everything that we do. And for me personally, like when I changed my name to Natalini, I feel how I felt and I feel it every day, how I shifted in a different frequency, and my life just started unfolding in a different way.
Wow. Maybe I need to change my name too.
Maybe.
Just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys. I mean, maybe yeah, this is something that you need to consider if you are feeling stuck or feeling like this name just doesn't work for me anymore. Maybe that's something you can take away from today's episode. Natalie, it was truly a joy having you. Thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything that you really want to talk about? Perhaps I didn't ask you or didn't let you.
No, I was so happy to sit with you. Thank you so much for having me as your guest. I'm so happy to connect to your audience. I'd love to stay in touch. Everyone can follow me on Instagram. My handle is just Natalini. Feel free to DM me if you're interested in joining the support circle that I host. We do it once a month. It's completely free of charge. It's only for women. And we gather online from every corner of the world, and we just for 2 hours share with each other, and it's really quite healing and quite transformative. So I encourage you, if you're interested, to send me a message, and I'll be very happy to join, to include you to our group. And yeah, if you're interested also to attend the events and the shows that I'm creating, you can find out more about them on my Instagram page. I update it regularly, and we'll be very happy to stay in touch with everyone. And if you have any questions, just feel free to get in contact. I'm more than happy to support as much as I can.
Yes, I will for sure leave all your links in the show note below. But before we end, we always end with our final five rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Every question has to be answered in one word or one sentence maximum.
Wow. Okay, let's do it.
All right. The first question is, what is one thing you wish you knew earlier?
Myself.
Love it. If you could relive one day of your life, which day would it be?
Interesting. Um, the first thing that, oh, well, one sentence. Oh,
Oh, it's
God.
okay.
The
It's okay.
day I interviewed Sadhguru on stage during COP28 in Dubai in front of 3,000 people was the first day I came on stage with my new name and my new identity. And it was a really important day for me.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. I love Sekuru. I'm his follower. Like I attended his courses, and
Yeah,
been a big inspiration in my spiritual path as well. So I'm really excited to hear that. Wow, how amazing!
thank you.
Now I have to
Yeah,
attend your event one day. Send me all the details.
for sure.
Yeah. All right. The third question: if you could master one skill you don't currently have, what would it be?
One skill. Hmm. I think it would be my ability to um, connect on a deeper level with people. My ability to trust.
Wow. Thanks for
Yeah.
being so honest and real. The next question is, if you could instantly solve one world problem, what would it be?
Oh God, I would solve the refugee crisis because it's been something that I dealt with for many years, and it's something that really breaks my heart. So if I could solve that in an instant, it would be that for me.
Beautiful. Now the last question is, what brings you the greatest joy?
Dancing.
Oh, wow. Are you good at dancing?
Well, yeah, I mean it's my greatest joy. I think it's my primary sort of gift in this lifetime. Of course, I never developed it professionally because I grew up to be something else. But as since I started discovering myself, I've connected to that gift, and connecting more and more, and it just gives me the most purest sense of joy, freedom, and beauty at the same time, is to be able to just move and express myself and be one with my body and rhythm and music and emotion, and it's just absolutely nirvana for me.
Wow, Nirvana. I love
Yeah.
it. Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much again, and thank you so much for your joy and your story is such a powerful reminder that true success isn't about, I would say, isn't about following other people's dream, right, or external validation, but it's about choosing yourself over and over and over again. So thank you so much for that. Now, guys, go follow her, experience the powerful work she's creating, and also the powerful event, whether it's a session, an event, or listening to her words. There's so much to learn from and inspiration to receive. And if today's episode sparked anything in you, if you are inspired, we would love to hear from you. You can drop a comment below or send us a DM, because your journey also matters. And I will always leave you the same way as I leave you every other episode. Show up. The world needs you and you need you. Thanks for listening, and I wish you all a joyful and amazing day ahead. Thank you again for tuning into Find Joy Joyan podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, take a screenshot and share it on your IG story and tag Find Joy Joyan _podcast so I know you are listening. And leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't already done so. And remember to hit the subscribe button whether you are listening on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, or any of your other favorite platforms. If you love what we are doing and want to become one of our sponsors, you can send me a DM to connect. And thanks for being here. I will see you soon in the next episode.